So in this video, I, Socrates Son, in 2025, will solve the Euthyphro's dilemma. In Greek is, let me see the Euthyphro. Guys, I cannot pronounce the Greek. Euthyphron, δίλημμα, το δίλημμα του Euthyphron. Euthyphron. Say that couple of times. Okay, first let's go and see what is this dilemma.
Today we're going to talk about the Euthyphro dilemma.
Now this argument can trace its origins all the way back to Socrates in ancient Greece. Now since Plato is the primary source of the Socratic dialogues, he's another Greek philosopher, almost any collection of Plato's works will include the Euthyphro dilemma. If you guys are interested in reading it for yourself, it's pretty good. Now if you're a regular viewer of my channel, then you probably know that I talk about the moral argument for God's existence quite a bit. Now the Euthyphro dilemma is probably one of the most common rebuttals to the moral argument, and by the end of this video I hope to show that the Euthyphro dilemma is actually a false dilemma.
What did you say just now? It's a false dilemma. We will see about that, my young lad. I won't let this stone steal my glory. Okay, let's go. So, I like this lad because I like him, I don't know. But let's see a more elegant presentation of the Euthyphro's dilemma.
So as we've talked about, Socrates is trying to answer this question, what is the relationship between religion and morality? And to do that, he gives a person in the dialogue, his name is Euthyphro, he gives them two possibilities, the dilemma. Either what is moral because it is commanded by the divine, or the divine commands what is moral because it's moral.
So in this week's ethical readings, you're exploring the relationship between ethics and religion. So as you explore the relationship between religion and morality, you'll find that some people believe things are good because God commands them, and some things are bad because God forbids them. This is called divine command theory. So for example, if you argue that homosexuality, slavery, and genocide are wrong because God forbids them, then you're using divine command theory. But intelligent theists and atheists are aware that there's a deep problem with basing your morality on what God commands. And it's not simply that people disagree about God's existence or what God commands. There's a deeper problem. That is, even if everyone agreed that God exists and agreed on what God commands, this problem would remain. And this problem is called the Euthyphro dilemma. A dilemma is when there's two choices and neither of the two choices is good. So what is the Euthyphro dilemma? Well, Plato wrote a dialogue called the Euthyphro. And you'll be reading this dialogue and answering questions about it at the end of this lesson. In the dialogue, Socrates is talking to a religious man named Euthyphro. Now at one point, and this is the most important point in the dialogue, Socrates asked Euthyphro whether the gods love pious acts because they're pious, or if it's pious because it's loved by the gods.
So Socrates says, wow, Euthyphro, you must really know what you're talking about when it comes to morality. And Euthyphro says, referring to himself in the third person, the best of Euthyphro, and that which distinguishes him, Socrates, from other men, is his exact knowledge of all such matters. What a douche.
So, guys, it's only fair me, Socrates Son, will solve this dilemma. So, now, look the analogy. So in the ancient times, it was Socrates, the original one, and some guy named Euthyphro. Now is Socrates' son against ChatGPT. So Euthyphro, the place of Euthyphro, takes ChatGPT. So I was sorry guys, this is part of philodoxia, the love for glory, this arrogance I exhibit right now. So I am smarter than Socrates, and ChatGPT is smarter than Euthyphro. In that sense, that's why we are able to solve this problem. So in the place of Socrates is Socrates' son, and in the place of Euthyphro we have ChatGPT. Now we can make intelligent questions to AI and can respond immediately with the right answers. and solve this problem. I already did that, in fact, guys. So I will show you my conclusion is part of a whole discussion I had with ChatGPT. So I was trying to prove Islam is wrong, and I did that, in fact. But in the meanwhile, ChatGPT put forward the Euthyphro dilemma, and I had to solve it. Simple as that. And then I thought to myself, wait just a moment. Solving the Euthyphro dilemma is significant enough by itself. It doesn't need to be in a refutation of Islam. Isn't that right? Because that, in fact, proves that morality doesn't come from God, and therefore I disprove God in general. So that is what I'm presenting to you right now. So guys, let's go to a clean ChatGPT conversation. The first question I will ask it is, I'm trying to solve the Euthyphro dilemma. These are the only possibilities. Let's go again. The letters are very small, so I cannot read them. 1 second. Okay. These are the only possible options. Do you agree? And I say, either divine justice is moral justice, either moral justice is divine justice, either divine justice is holistically or partly morally deficient, or moral justice cannot be immoral justice. Are these the only options? This is what I ask ChatGPT. Let's see what it answers. So, ChatGPT here is giving me possibilities about the nature of morality. So I insist and I say, I understand nuances in the nature of morality, but as statements representing possibility, is there any other option? And what is that? So again, ChatGPT is describing me the nature of morality, the nuances of the nature of morality. And I insist. And I say, you again give me explanations of the nature of morality. I claim all these nuances are included in the 4 possibilities I presented. So guys, let's read the conclusion of ChatGPT.
Conclusion. In terms of core possibilities for the relationship between divine justice and moral justice, your 4 options are quite comprehensive. They seem to encompass the logical range of possibilities stemming from the Euthyphro dilemma, whether we are saying divine justice and moral justice are the same, related, or separate, or whether divine justice could be morally deficient. So, yes, these 4 possibilities seem to capture the full range of options, especially when framed as logical possibilities. Does this align with your reasoning, or do you think there are even subtler possibilities we should consider?
Because I didn't like it says the subtle possibility we should consider, I insist and I say, okay, so as logical possibilities that include all the nuances you said, can you think of any other? Okay, this is more or less my question. So guys, this is important. See how it answers.
Could there be any other logical possibilities? given that these four logically encompass all the relevant scenarios where divine justice might relate to moral justice, whether it's identical to, derived from, or aligned with some independent standard, or whether it's deficient. There don't seem to be other new logical possibilities that fall outside of these. In essence, you've captured all the key logical options. Divine justice is the same as moral justice. Moral justice is independent but aligned with divine justice. Divine justice could be morally deficient. Justice, by definition, must be moral. So, after analysing these, I don't see another logical possibility that doesn't already fit within one of your four categories.
Guys, what is the brilliance of ChatGPT? When you are interacting with a human, the ego comes in place, and the intellectual deficiencies come in place. So you are lost in this endless debate. The brilliance of ChatGPT is that if you ask the right questions, it will give you the right answers. Okay, ChatGPT is not God. Okay, can do errors, but when it comes to simple logic, it cannot do errors in this level of logic. For example, if there are more possibilities than these four, logically, it's impossible to say, no, these are the possibilities. Okay, so in this case, initially it gave me some nuances. And I said, don't give me the nuances of the nature of morality. I already know this conversation. Give me as possibilities. Are there any other possibility other than these four that include all the nuances? And it admitted that, oh, you are right, these four are the only possibilities that include all the nuances. But we don't even need ChatGPT. Okay, it's simple logic. These are the only possible options. Do you agree? So either divine justice is moral justice, either moral justice is divine justice, either divine justice is holistically or partly morally deficient, either the fourth option, which is the key to solve the Euthyphro dilemma. Moral justice cannot be immoral justice. What is the difference of number 3 and number 4? Number 4, the ontological properties of number 4 is a tautology. Okay, so the number 4, the proposition number 4 is moral justice cannot be immoral justice. So that is a direct tautology, how you call it in English. In contrast with number 3, that is either divine justice is holistically or partly morally deficient. So now we get out, we see the argument from another scope. We see the argument from the scope of ontology. Okay, so the ontology of morality. So moral justice cannot be immoral justice. That is a direct tautology. So these two must be the same because they are directly contradicting each other. So in other words, what I did, I went into a mental experiment, and I put in one side moral justice, and I put in the other side what we are searching, the truth, and they fit perfectly because they are a direct tautology. The one directly contradicts the other. Moral justice cannot be moral justice. Yet, divine justice can be, doesn't fit, it doesn't equal. So, let me try to explain that. So, moral justice cannot be immoral justice because they directly contradict each other. They are the same. But divine justice can be not moral justice. They are not a direct tautology. They are the ontology of these meanings. They are not directly contradicting each other. Can you understand? So what I just proved, that moral justice is in fact moral justice, is not divine justice, ontologically. Okay, and that is and I solved the Euthyphro's dilemma in this way. Now, given that the Euthyphro's dilemma disproves God, does it? Let me think. It proves that morality doesn't come from God, not necessarily disproves God. In fact, it does the classical sense of God, because that implies that the nature of God is not the most fundamental thing. There is something, the moral law that underlines God. So I am the man who sold the world, who eventually proved that God doesn't exist. Wow, is this some kind of curse? In the possibility that God existed, this would have been a terrible curse. Oh, sorry. But obviously, again, that's a circular argument, because I already proven that God doesn't exist, so it's not a curse either. But let's see this young lad who said that this is a false dilemma. Let's see whether you are right or wrong.
Let's start by defining terms, starting with a dilemma. A dilemma is a choice between two unpleasant alternatives.
Now, if there are 3 or more alternatives, it's what's known as a false dilemma.
Here's a quick example of a dilemma. The Euthyphro dilemma seeks to show that God is not the foundation of objective morality.
But if there is a third explanation, which is even possible, then the Euthyphro dilemma becomes a false dilemma and proves nothing. So here's what the Euthyphro dilemma says. Are morally good acts willed by God because they are morally good, or are they morally good because they are willed by God?
Let's take a closer look at option 1. Are morally good acts willed by God because they are morally good? That is to say, does God merely recognize a standard of morality external to himself? If that is the case, then the standard of morality is external to God, and God is not the foundation of objective morality.
Option 2. Are morally good acts morally good simply because they are willed by God? If this is the case, then God could have commanded something different, and that would have been good. So rather than being objective, morality would be hopelessly arbitrary. Now, neither of these two options seem satisfying to the theists. Now we're going to propose a third option, and remember, if this third option is even possible, then the Euthyphro dilemma is a false dilemma.
Okay, here it is. Option 3. God's nature, aka his essential properties, is a standard of goodness. This is neither a standard external to God, nor is something he arbitrarily creates. In fact, it wouldn't be something created at all. Rather, the way God necessarily is objectively valuable.
It's not a standard external to God, nor is it something he arbitrarily creates, but is how he essentially is. Now, I'll eventually have an entire playlist on the Euthyphro dilemma. I'll be addressing objections to the argument I just made and be answering.
This is the argument of God not being the arbiter of morality, but his nature being the source of morality. This refutes certain classical formulations of the Euthyphro's dilemma, but it doesn't negate the spirit of the dilemma, which is to investigate whether morality comes from God or not. That is the spirit of the dilemma. So you are referring about the nature of God. like I was saying to ChatGPT, don't focus on the nature of God to this type of questions. Focus on the spirit of the argument. The spirit of the argument, the honest approach to the spirit of the argument, instead of focusing on grammar, is morality comes from God or not. You are saying, yes, but morality doesn't come from the will of God, it comes from the nature of God. Okay, we know this argument. In fact, this type of arguments have other problems. For example, if morality comes from God's nature instead of his will, that means that God is not a moral agent. You know what that means? That means that a human, who is in fact a moral agent, is a morally superior being than God, he's just a robot with a perfect moral code. Imagine a robot with a perfect moral code and a human who is morally superior being. A human, because a human is a truly moral agent, whether the robot is morally neutral, in fact. It's just follow a code. The same way God just follows his nature. He's not really a free agent. So that is one problem. The other problem that can be said about this is that in Christianity specifically, the will of God cannot will something against his nature. God cannot murder because that goes against his nature. So in fact, his will is equivalent with his nature. In any case, nothing of all this refutes my argument. My argument is based on the spirit of the Euthyphro's dilemma. In other words, does morality come from God or not? That is the spirit of this dilemma. These philosophers, this is what they were trying to investigate, whether morality comes from God. They didn't try to investigate the exact nature of morality. So the spirit of the Euthyphro's dilemma, when you focus on one word of the dilemma in some specific formulation, that morality comes from the will of God, when in fact, no, it comes from the nature of God. Okay, you are right about that, but that is kind of being dishonest to the spirit of the argument. This was not the point of the argument. I can make a Euthyphro's dilemma, a formulation of the Euthyphro's dilemma that includes what you say. The dilemma comes from Plato, from a dialogue. So the dialogue is very long. It's not like a deductive formulation. So from this dialogue of Socrates with this individual, you can formulate a Euthyphro's dilemma in another formulation that goes above your supposedly false dilemma. So yes, if you want to say that is a false dilemma against this specific formulation of the Euthyphro's dilemma, yes, you are right. But you are dishonest to the spirit of this argument. And on top of that, you create more problems for your religion. And in fact, you avoid the essence of the philosophical beauty and essence of this argument. In other words, you are obfuscating. Okay, this is a false dilemma. Let's go further. No, you didn't investigate the power of the argument in this way. Okay, you didn't ponder the true power of the argument. You just found a way with grammar to avoid the argument. That is what you did. Thank you very much, guys.